it up, let it roll. Stars and stripes in my soul. Steel toes on, boots in the gravel. Heartland truth on every channel. Open Bible, flag on the wall. We say what we believe when we don't talk at all. This is red, white, and raised hell. Cowboy hat, church bell. Can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raised hell. We back the badge, we guard the border. We love our guns and law and order. They try to shame every word we say, but we don't bow down, we just press play. This is red, white, and raised hell. Cowboy hat, church bell. Can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the bell. Hey, we won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raised hell. You can cancel the show, but not the crowd. We're still here, still talking loud. Gander the free on every spell. Hit that mic, host, let the truth ring out. This is red, white, and raised hell. Cowboy hat, church bell. Can't scare us into silence. We were born to rail from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raised hell.
All right, what is going on? Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for being with us. Get me off of the screen so that I can be on the screen. There we go. How about that? Yeah, I'd be a really good musician if I had any musical talent. Because I can sit here and, man, I can play a mean piano on my desk with no keys here, like I was just doing during the song there. And I can drum. I can drum when it's on air, which is really incredible. I can dance as long as my feet don't get involved. If I'm sitting in a chair, I can dance really well. I'd be a really good musician if I had any musical talent at all. I don't know. But I get fired up every time I hear that song every morning. And I can't believe I just stumbled into making it. Hey, it is, what, Wednesday? Yeah, it's a Wednesday. And it is, by my count, the 18th morning of the second month in the year of our Lord 2026. It also happens to be a special kind of a Wednesday. It is Ash Wednesday and the start of the Lenten season. It was way too fast, by the way. I swear Christmas just ended, or the Christmas season did. I think lights were still on in some of the people in my city's houses like last week. Maybe it's because we've been buried under all the snow, and that's melted now. It's going to be 60 today here in Northeast Ohio, but I don't know, man. It flew. To me, it flew from Advent to Lent really, really quickly. So it is, for Catholics, a very, very important and holy time of the year. Obviously, it's a holy day today. Probably won't be able to get my ashes until later this afternoon / early evening. Thankfully, there'll be services for that. So to all of my Catholic brothers and sisters, and all of those who, even if you're not Catholic, but if you are a person of faith, I wish you a blessed day. I wish all of us a blessed day. A lot of good things to do this morning. A lot of bad stuff to talk about, but a lot of good things to do this morning. Coming up in about an hour plus, hour and a half or so, we're going to talk to a new candidate for State House, State Representative, Stephanie Stock, who is the champion for OAMF, the Ohio Advocates for Medical Freedom. relentless pursuit of legislation to basically keep government out of our bodies and our lives with respect to what medication we're forced to take, what our choices are, what limitations, the medical community and the pharmaceutical community should have over us. Medical freedom is a huge issue, obviously became supersized during the pandemic. Anyway, Stephanie is working really, really, really hard trying to influence legislators and has been for the last, several years. Now she says, all right, fine, I'll go become one of them. So she's running. We'll talk about where. We'll talk about what that means with her at about 8:30 this morning. For the rest of the stuff, holy cow, do we have a lot to discuss. And like I said, not all of it is very good. Let me start, since I mentioned the date, with the inspirational quote of the day, flip calendar. This is a perpetual calendar I've had for 35 years on my desk, classroom desk, radio desk, now this live stream podcast desk. February 18th, don't wait for your ship to come in. Swim out to it. Simple. That's another anonymous. Most of these have the philosopher, the author, the playwright, the poet, the inspirational guru behind most of these, but some of them are anonymous. That one's anonymous. Don't wait for your ship to come in. Swim out to it. That's damn right. That's a good piece of advice right there. If you want it, go get it. Don't wait for it to be brought to you. Let me get into the chat early on here and say good morning to the folks who are up and at it. It looked like B. Morgan got in very early this morning at like 6:25. And the first comment was, oh my gosh, you're right. First comment from B. Morgan, I saw this back at about 6:25. I saw Tricia McLaughlin just step down from her position at DHS. Yeah, you did. And so did I, about a half an hour after I got off the show yesterday. I just finished interviewing Tricia McLaughlin from DHS, Department of Homeland Security. Great interview, chock full of really, really important information about the ongoing efforts in the face of this shutdown, this partial government shutdown that we're experiencing right now because ICE, because Democrats want ICE to basically be abolished, and their list of demands to be met before the government can be fully funded, in DHS, it's lunacy. It's literally insanity, right? Anyway, we had a great conversation about what ICE is doing, about what DHS is doing, about how the administration is dealing with this, about what it's going to take to get reopened, and on and on and on. Really, really good stuff. In fact, it was such a great interview. I plan to play it back on Friday because we're going to have some best of kind of shows on the next couple of days. We still have live streams with open chat, but I'm going to be doing some national radio, so I'm going to have to step aside for a couple of days. But anyway, I was going to replay that, and I still am. But about a half an hour after interviewing her at about 9:30 or so yesterday, I get the alert across my screen from Fox News, DHS advisor Tricia McLaughlin to leave Trump administration. I said, what? I mean, I just talked to her. I got no hint of anything. She seemed like she was dialed in, ready to go, taking on the fight, talking about. I did ask her about what it's like to be her and about what it's like to be in DHS and in the crosshairs, literally and figuratively, of the radical left. I said, your ICE faces all of these dangers all of the time, the doxing and so forth. You're not doxed. Your face is out there, and you are defending ICE, defending Border Patrol, defending DHS all the time. It's your job. And I said, how hard is it for you? And she said, yeah, the death threats are hard. The threats and the intimidation tactics at her family and so forth. Yeah, I wonder. Because from what I read yesterday, and I don't know if there's been an update to it or not, but from what I read yesterday, let me just do a quick little ask here. There was not a reason given by Tricia in the article. It just kind of went through her history, the places she's been before. She's obviously an Ohio girl or a woman. She worked for Mike DeWine for a while. She worked for Vivek Ramaswamy's presidential campaign. Now she's working for the Trump administration as an advisor to Kristi Noem and a key information officer from DHS. And McLaughlin, here's, some articles from the Washington Post. Of course, they're going to characterize her in a negative light. She has been the face of the Trump administration's hardline immigration messaging, is expected to leave DHS in the coming days. Her departure was initially planned for late 2025, but was delayed to help manage ongoing controversies. That's again, the Washington Post. Her role in defending aggressive immigration enforcement, including controversial communications after 2 fatal shootings by federal immigration agents, has drawn public criticism and declining support for the administration's policies nationwide. Again, this is how the Washington Post reports. I cannot stand that. That's the first result I get when I do a little search here. But, and Axios is reporting that DHS has appointed her deputy as the new spokesperson for the department. Okay, but no real reasons are being given here about why Tricia has decided to step away. So I'm disappointed by that, because I think she's great for the administration. I really do. I don't like the characterization of the Washington Post or anybody else, but there it is. So Tricia, it's weird. Again, it was one of those things where the very last interview she did was, as I think, unless she sticks out of state on for a couple more days. Otherwise, I was going to say the very last interview she did was right here and talking about the future of DHS and talking about funding it and so forth. So really, really disappointed to see that. We'll see where it goes. I just don't know what the reason is. I would love to have known. I texted her immediately after. I said, please, you got to let me know what's going on here, and I've not gotten a reply. She's been super gracious with me. I'm not going to take that as a slight in any way. She's been wonderful, but she's probably got a billion media requests right now trying to say, hey, what's DHS's future? Why are you leaving? Are you disenchanted? Have you been fired? What's the story? People are going to be asking. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. But anyway, how did I get to that? Oh, yeah, the chat. B. Morgan brought it up. It was kind of weird. Lisa, good morning, and Sharon, good morning. Tell everyone to observe a holy Lent. Yeah. Just did. Roz, good morning to Roz and Granny and Hockey Player and Jan and El Keister and Black Belt and Sally and Rum. JC, West Siders up in and at it. Did I say Joanne and Liberty Bell and Janie and Charlie and Sarah and Marty and Nana? And the crowd just keeps coming. So keep on coming. And who'd you bring today? Good morning, Mike. Who'd you bring today with you? I've been asking you guys that, and I'm getting no answers. Who'd you bring with you today? Make it your mission to bring a different person with you to the chat every single day. And if they can't get up early because they're getting ready for work right now, I get it. Make sure that they are in and going to watch the podcast a little bit later today. The channel is overflowing with goodness and with great content, I think, for over the course of the 6 weeks or so we've been doing this now. So check it out and share it with other people. That's the most important thing. Again, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, and share and join. So we're up to 5 different calls to action now. Like the show when you're on it, and when you're watching it, click that thumbs up button. Follow it, click the follow button. Subscribe. Notifications bell, which you can see to make sure that you get notified when there's new content, and join the locals community so you can be a part of our social media in there. By the way, I posted something in my social media yesterday that was I don't know, let me see if I can pull it up here. Let me see if I can just pull up my locals feed super quick. Yeah, let's do that. Let's switch to that tab. I don't know if this was necessarily nice of me, but there's a part of me, the largest part of me, in fact, that says, I don't care. Hang on, let me grab it. What I'm talking about is, and it actually is what led to the title of today's episode, From Schumer to Gavin to AOC and more, have you no shame? These people are so embarrassing. They're complete and utter stupidity. I mean, if you're going to be an idiot, I suppose there is some merit to going full blithering. All right. If you're going to be an idiot, you might as well be a full blithering idiot. I can get with that a little bit. I give you a little bit of respect for that. You might as well, why go halfway? Go all the way to full blithering idiot. And darn it, that's not what they do. So many of them do. And including those individuals in the headline there, like I said, AOC and Gavin Newsom and Chuck Schumer. And some of this I'm going to illustrate in the I'm sorry, I'm obviously distracted here, in the video components. And this is what I'm trying to load. I did this one just yesterday in the truck. I found out about the Ted Cruz, Gavin Newsom dust up. In fact, let me put that up just to set the table for the video that I did. Where's Gavin and Ted Cruz? Gavin Newsom was really, really upset with Ted Cruz because he called him historically illiterate, because Gavin Newsom said some historically illiterate things, essentially, is what it comes down to. Here it is. Let me share this tab for you and pop it up on the screen. Can everybody see that okay? Yeah, hopefully you can. Anyway, yeah, that's a better sharing of the screen. So anyway, apparently Gavin Newsom said something really stupid about history, and Ted Cruz called him out on it and called him historically illiterate. Gavin Newsom responds with a tweet insulting Ted Cruz, telling him, "How dare you?" I don't know if I can find that tweet or not, but basically said, this is a new low even for Ted Cruz. How can you call me illiterate in such an insulting way when I'm dyslexic? First of all, I didn't know Gavin Newsom was dyslexic. Did you? Newsom has detailed his dyslexia difficulties over the years. I didn't hear it. Stating school was incredibly challenging for him growing up. On Monday afternoon, Cruz posted a clip from his podcast discussing how, Cruz posted a clip discussing how historically illiterate Newsom is. I'll read this. By the way, just like AOC and Whitmer, Newsom is apparently thoroughly historically illiterate. We've never seen National Guards federalized in the states. That's something Newsom said. I guess his history book does not show. Notice it says history book, not his reading book. History does not discuss the civil rights movement. He's never heard of a president named Dwight D. Eisenhower. He's never heard of sending the National Guard into southern states when Democrats who refused to desegregate schools resisted. Eisenhower sent in the National Guard. The pattern is the same. In this instance, you have Democrats who are saying we refuse to comply with federal immigration law. Then you had in the 50s and 60s, you had Democrats saying we refuse to comply with civil rights laws. In both instances, it is lawless Democrats attacking law enforcement. You know, Gavin Newsom is proudly following the tradition of Bull Connor, another Democrat politician. In response to Cruz's video, Newsom then posted that the Republican Senator Ted Cruz, quote, calling a dyslexic person illiterate is a new low even for him. To say that he got dragged on the online comments is an understatement. Peachy Keenan wrote, thinking historically illiterate makes you functionally illiterate is what tells me you are in fact illiterate. South Korean streamer Kangmin Lee wrote, oh, so you're actually retarded? Now, I'm not going to get into name calling here, and I don't want to use pejorative terms. I'm also not about political correctness, so I'll share it when it's appropriate here. But basically, that's a fair question. Confirming yourself illiterate by falsely accusing someone else of calling you illiterate is some Michael Scott stuff, said a Capital Research investigative researcher. Between AOC not knowing that Venezuela is north of the equator, so that's why she's part of my headline, my episode title today, that Venezuela is north of the equator, and Gavin Newsom not knowing the difference between illiterate and historically illiterate, this has been a real banner few days for the intellectual wing of the Democrat Party. And it just goes on and on and on, which brings me back to the point that I was making. Let me find my locals link. I thought I had my locals link. Some of these things, like I said, I kind of do on the fly. I didn't plan this one out. So let me see if I can find the video that I recorded yesterday in response to this. Yeah, here it is. All right, I can share this now. Look at that. See, things are getting better already. Just had to hunt just a little bit. All right. Hope you can see that. And this is what I recorded in my Bob France Road Rants yesterday.
Apparently, Gavin Newsom is really upset with Ted Cruz for calling him historically illiterate. Apparently, he thinks it's below the belt to insult somebody like that who is dyslexic. In a scathing rebuke, Newsom issued a press release that said, Dare how he fun make of me, not nice is he.
I don't. Does that make me a bad guy? I don't care. I guess maybe it does, but it's Gavin Newsom, and he's an idiot. And I don't care if he's dyslexic. I'm going to call him an idiot, and I think Ted Cruz has right to call him historically illiterate because he is, and they are, and it's real. And you dig it? No, that's not allowed. Sorry. But these people just prove themselves to be beyond ignorant almost on a daily basis. And then there's AOC. AOC had kind of a twofer a couple of days. She goes to the Munich Security Conference to bash America and to bash the president. And then when asked about, her view on national security and about geopolitical enemies and how that would impact American national security, such as, for example, what if China were to invade Taiwan, which is always a looming threat? And she provided a good 10 or 12 seconds of before spitting out something that basically said nothing. And then she decides she's going to go off and hold court about where Venezuela is, saying that Venezuela is, below the equator. It's in the southern hemisphere. Again, she wants to be president. She's out there trying to burgeon her, just like Gavin, her credentials. And so she's out there trying to get into lanes in which she does not belong. She can't steer it straight enough to be in those lanes. She needs to move over and get to the right and stay in the slow lane because she's a slow learner, just like Gavin and just like so many of the others. Chuck Schumer being one of the others. Now, Chuck Schumer, of course, is a little bit different than Gavin and AOC because his time has come. He's old and decrepit and done, and he's humiliating himself, particularly in matters of things like the SAVE Act, because this is another one. While we're at it, let me pull up to it. I don't know if I have the other video here or not. Did I post this one on Locals yesterday? Is it only on? No, I don't think so. It's only on my Instagram, on my Facebook, and my TikTok. Make sure you follow me on all those places, by the way. Numbers are growing rapidly on all of those platforms, which is really, really good. We got to make sure they start growing a lot more rapidly on this platform too. But anyway, there's video that I probably could show. Let me go ahead and try to make it happen real quick, of Chuck Schumer. When Chuck Schumer was a younger idiot, as opposed to the elder idiot that he is now, Chuck Schumer had a very, very different view of requiring photo identification for things. And it's just kind of funny. Let me pop that one up here if I can, super quick. And yes, I think I can. There's my Wall O videos on Instagram. And I think this would have been that one, perhaps. Or is it this one? Yeah, this is the one. Okay. It's got to get the audio situation happening here. So this is, again, another road rant from, actually, this one was from late in the day on Monday when I found this, but here we go.
6-year-old. Tell me how this guy.
Let's admit the truth. Everywhere people go, they're asked for a social security card. In fact, one way to prove you're a bona fide person who can have a job is to ask for a driver's license and a social security card.
I can see that you cannot see that. So hang on, let me just hit this bad boy up here. There we go. Okay, please continue making an ass of yourself, Senator Chuck Schumer. No, really, it's okay. Go ahead.
This is an anti-fraud amendment.
Is also this guy.
South for decades to prevent people of color from voting. If you can't find a birth certificate or a proper ID, you'll be discriminated against. This is vicious and nasty. And we're not reviving Jim Crow all over the country.
These people stand for absolutely nothing.
I'm going to let it play again because I want you to see the two comments back.
Explain this to me like I'm a 6-year-old. Tell me how this guy.
Let's admit the truth. Everywhere people go, they're asked for a social security card. In fact, one way to prove you're a bona fide person who can have a job is to ask for a driver's license and a social security card.
Why is that not, by the way, why is that not on a commercial on a loop 24/7? I think that should be in every single person's phone, every person's television, every person's computer screen. The RNC needs to make sure everybody hears that hypocrisy. You heard him defending the requesting of social security cards, the requirement of identification cards, driver's licenses to get a job and to stop fraud. That was a young Chuck Schumer, as you see.
This is an anti-fraud amendment.
Is also this guy.
South for decades to prevent people of color from voting. If you can't find a birth certificate or a proper ID, you'll be discriminated against. This is vicious and nasty. And we're not reviving Jim Crow all over the country.
These people stand for absolutely nothing.
And that I stand by. That is exactly correct. They do. They stand for absolutely nothing, because if the principle, you know, that he was describing there and about how it should be mandatory and required for people to show identification to stop fraud, that applies to voter fraud as well. And if that was the case back in whatever year that was, that young Chuck Schumer made that statement, why would it cease to be accurate today? You have to stop fraud, and you do that with identification. You do that with citizenship at the time of registration, and then you do that with proof of identity at the time of casting votes. That's how we stop fraud. Young Chuck Schumer, today's Chuck Schumer. You know, it's kind of funny, and I could be wrong, but I don't think so. If you go back and look at some of the heavy hitters in the Republican legislature, or just in Republican politics, locally, statewide, nationally, generally speaking, the stuff that I heard 20 or 30 years ago from, and we're talking about some of the older ones now, 20 or 30 years ago, is going to be pretty damn consistent with what you're hearing from them today. It is only the Democrats, and we've seen countless examples. I'm not going to hunt and peck here to find the videos we've already seen of Barack Obama talking about the need for strong borders and immigration, illegal immigrants to be deported. Bill Clinton talking about the same exact thing, deporting illegal immigrants, securing the border, because of the deleterious impact that has on the United States if the borders are open and we allow these people to come here and stay, right? Again and again and again, we have seen it. Even Hillary Clinton, back when she was just First Lady, back when she was a senator, back when she was Secretary of State, she used to say the same things. 20 years ago, this was their view on illegal immigration when they were in power. And now here we are today. This is their view on illegal immigration because they want power back. So now they have to obstruct everything that Trump is doing, which everything Trump is doing right now was directly in line with what they called for 20 and 25 and 30 years ago. And now it's being done that way, but it's being done effectively by their hated rivals. So therefore they have to now switch it. But we've seen countless examples of Democrats on video from years gone by, but now that it's politically expedient for them, completely reversing those views. That's why the heading of the show today, from Schumer to Gavin to AOC, have you no shame? Between inconsistency of messaging and inability to comprehend simple words, it is embarrassing. And if they were likable, I would feel bad for them, but they're not likable. In fact, they're detestable. And therefore I mock them and I laugh at them, including Gavin Newsom. And so I not apologize things said for that earlier, because dyslexia thing Gavin has. Sorry, not going to apologize. If that makes other people who are dyslexic feel bad, I'm sorry, get over it. You have to understand the point of it. All right. So I want to get into a few things since it is about 7:30 in the morning right now. A couple hours ago, this happened in New York City. And you should know this because it's going to happen in many, many other cities if we don't stop it. New Yorkers wake to the Islamic call to prayer. This is obviously in red state. I'll zoom this up a little bit if I can and see if we can make sure you can see this as well. We all saw this coming. We all saw this coming when we elected Zoran Mamdani right there, with all of his Muslim pals behind him as he was sworn in, all of his, we are going to kill you all if you don't convert to Islam. Sorry, That's what Islam teaches. So every burqa, every hijab, every whatever we call the headgear of the guys, and all of their robes, all of it stands for, we will kill you if you don't convert and become one of us. Kill or convert all infidels is what Islam teaches. Sorry? Not sorry. That's them. And that's what was elected to be in charge of New York City. Okay? Not because we hate our neighbors, not because we fear prayer, but because we understand history, we understand symbolism, and we understand that culture never collapses all at once. It erodes, quietly at first and then loudly. A tweet making the rounds this week shows video of the Islamic call to prayer. The Adhan, it's called, amplified 5 a.m, projected over neighborhoods that still carry the scars of September 11th, 2001. That date is not ancient history, it is living memory. The rage that I feel boiling up inside of me when I see that and I hear that can't really be put into words. I can only hope that you felt it too. That video, which obviously shows the city skyline there, or a version of it, not the exact same skyline as Lower Manhattan, but they're playing that Muslim call to prayer at 5 o'clock in the morning in the city where on September 11th, we looked at that skyline and immediately, especially now and 25 years since, tell me your eyes weren't looking for the planes, right? Mine were. I'm listening to the Islamic call to prayer being blasted out over New York City, the place where the Islamic call to prayer was used to motivate the Islamic terrorists who shouted Allahu Akbar as they flew planes into our buildings and murdered our citizens and stole America's innocence. Tell me, if you're in the chat, tell me, when you see that skyline, you can see on your screen right now, and you heard that call to prayer, tell me your eyes weren't looking. Where are the towers and where are the planes? You cannot help but doing that. It's only been a quarter century. It's only been 25 years since Islam made 9/11 happen. And in 25 years, we went from, oh my God, radical Islam is an enemy of the United States, an enemy of the West, an enemy of Western civilization. It is incompatible with Western civilization. In 25 years, we went from that reality to the Islamic call to prayer, blasting out over New York City at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's winter now, and chances are most New York City apartment windows were closed. You probably could still hear that because it was amplified. But wait until weather breaks. Wait until people are sleeping with their windows open. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, you're laying comfortably in your bed and you hear I'll stop it there because I can't take any more of it than you can. Zoltar Mamdani's Sharia Dawn is here. The words are transcribed there. Well, some of them are anyway. I don't really care. What I do care about the fact, and there it is, that's the word that I was looking for. The word I care about here is submission. This is the sound of conquest echoing in New York City right now. The Islamic call to prayer is being amplified louder and more aggressively, starting as early as 5 a.m., invading homes, neighborhoods, and the once proud skyline where thousands were murdered on 9/11 in Islam's name. Under leaders like Eric Adams, who greenlit loud broadcasts for Fridays and Ramadan, and now the push under jihadi Zohran Mamdani's influence, this isn't religious freedom. It's dawah from City Hall. It's submission. It's the next stage. They don't need planes anymore. They're conquering with sound policy silence from those who should defend our values. New York is falling, one amplified Allahu Akbar after another. That is exactly what is happening. And I cannot really fathom any way to see it any other way. That's reality. And I know I'm a phobe. All right. I'm an Islamophobe. Oh my God. Right-wing, conservative, far right, neo-Nazi Islamophobe. Condemns call to prayer for the religion of peace. You call me any name you want. But you're damn right, I'm gonna condemn the call to prayer because it is not a religion of peace. It is a religion that says kill, kill, kill. It's a religion that says the blood of our enemies is what we bathe in gloriously because Allah has given us such victories. You want an example? I wasn't going to play this today. It was part of the research for the show this morning, but I wasn't going to play this. But now that I'm getting fired up about that call to prayer, let me see if I can grab it real quick. This would be in my, I think it's going to be in my rundown. Oh, I got AOC on here with her insanity too. I don't want to get there. But no, I want to get to this part of it because it's specific to the Sharia law, the Islamic call, the sudden acceptance of the religion that led to the most horrific day in our lifetimes, and one of the worst, certainly the worst terrorist attack in all of American history. Here it is. I found it. This is just to really underscore why, if you want to call me an Islamophobe, I'll proudly carry that. I'll wear that because this is what you need to see and this is what you need to hear. All right. This post from Lisa Rosen is a Muslim Brotherhood TV host explaining under what circumstances Christian girls should be allowed to be raped. Allah allows Muslim men to rape non-Muslim women to humiliate them. This is a woman that's going to be making these comments on this Muslim Brotherhood television broadcast. And as you can see, she's completely free herself, right? I'm surprised we can see more than her eyes. But nonetheless, this is what we talk about. And I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. Islam is a degenerate, repulsive, oppressive, sexist. I need a thesaurus here to define more adjectives to describe the horror that is Islam, and it is not religion. I say this as a proud Catholic on Ash Wednesday. Your religion is not a religion. If you have been fooled into thinking it is, that's on you. Think deeper. Your religion is a political movement hell-bent on destruction and power. Destroy your enemies to gain power for yourself. That is what Islam is, and I don't care who knows it. It's not compatible with Western values because it says you can kill Jews for being Jewish. It says you can kill all non-Muslims for being non-Muslims. And if you die in the course of doing so, you will be rewarded in heaven with 72 virgins, which again are young women who will apparently service your deepest, darkest appetites as a reward for killing non-Muslims on this earth. Your heaven will be their hell, because that's how they treat women. There's not one woman in America, and I don't care how far radically left you are, that should defend Islam when you think about what it does to women. So this is going to be in Arabic, obviously, so I'm going to turn the volume way down on it, and I'm just going to read the captions to you here so you know why I brought this up. When Islam emerged, it put slavery into order by limiting it to legitimate wars between Muslims and their enemies. If we fought Israel, which is plundering land and is an aggressor against people and their faith, obviously it is impossible that we will fight Israel. Even though Surat al-Isra in the Quran foretells this, that nothing is beyond the power of Allah, the female prisoners of wars are those whom you own. In order to humiliate them, they become the property of the army commander or of a Muslim. And he can have sex with them just like he has sex with his wives. I'll pause there and let that disgusting image sink into your head. When Islam conquers another land, and that's what the Ottoman Empire did for centuries, when Islam conquers another people, they either kill or convert or enslave them. And females who are enslaved become sex slaves. They can be raped by their Muslim owners as much as they want. Now, you can say, well, a lot of the slave owners in the colonies had sex with their slaves, raped their slaves, and so forth. And you're exactly right. And I'm very, very happy to say, thank God we eradicated that evil practice, all of everything having to do with slavery, and the fact that Western democracies, which is what ours became, or in our case, it's a constitutional republic, but the West wiped out slavery that was that way around the world for literally ever. Warring tribes captured slaves from other tribes. Conquered people became either killed people or enslaved people. And yes, these things happen. But what I'm bringing up here is all of those things are in the past, except for Islam. It is today. This is not from, 1820. And it's not from 1620 either. This is Islamic Muslim Brotherhood television saying, when we take female prisoners, they become slaves and owned by their Muslim captors, with whom they must have sex just as if they were their wives. I'll play the rest of this decadence. Some opportunists and extremists who only harm Islam say, I will bring a woman from East Asia as a slave girl under the status of those whom you own. And with the consent of my wife, I will allocate this woman. Hold on, it's getting a little too fast now. It's kind of weird how they do their little translations there. With the consent of my wife, the wife has to agree. I will allocate this woman a room in the house and will have sex with her as a slave girl. This is nonsense. This is not prescribed by Islam at all. However, Islam says that a woman is either a wife or a slave girl. So in trying to refute what non-believers, she essentially explains how it does work. Yes, the woman is either a wife or a slave girl. Legitimately owned slaves come from among prisoners from a war. Apparently there's legitimate slavery, according to the Muslim Brotherhood, whom President Trump has declared, by the way, a foreign terrorist organization. In their, I won't call it faith, it's not religion, in their culture, There are legitimate owned slaves today. And if they're taken as prisoners of war, waged against the Muslims, and of course, we all know that it is the Muslims who are waging the war. Muslims who are waging the war in places like, I don't know, Israel. October 7, 2023, ring a bell. They waged war and they took Israeli women as hostages. They raped and they butchered and they tortured them because it's what Muslims do. It is what Islam calls for. Now, the obligatory messaging here, and I'll do the job. It doesn't mean every Muslim is a terrorist, and it doesn't mean every Muslim is a rapist. But I can tell you that that is what the Quran calls for. I have talked to enough Islamic scholars and Quranic historians and experts on this show and on previous radio shows to know what the Quran teaches. Not every Muslim practices it, but it is exactly what Islam requires. If they don't practice it, they're not being true to their faith. They're not being good Muslims. That's just the reality of it. So the Islamic call to prayer is sounding over New York City. What an extraordinary acknowledgement and reality that is. All right, I want to do this. I want to say thank you, and I want to acknowledge somebody that has played a huge role in this program, and that, of course, is our friends at AFP, Americans for Prosperity. AFP is a foundational sponsor and partner of, strictly speaking, Unfiltered, because they're doing what we want to do, and that is to help Ohio become its very best. And the way they have done that with the outline of the Buckeye Blueprint, because we here in Ohio do have everything that we need to lead the nation, but we just need better policies on getting there, right? The Buckeye Blueprint kind of outlines those policies. It focuses on building a better, bolder Buckeye state, moving us from the middle of the Midwest to number one in the country for economic freedom, educational opportunity, energy abundance, and a government that works for the people. So if you believe Ohio can do better, and I do, and Americans for Prosperity do, I promise you, then join us and take action at BuckeyeBlueprint.com, BuckeyeBlueprint.com. AFP, again, being a foundational sponsor and supporter of the show, extremely important, and we thank them for their support. This is exactly what it takes when we talk about a mission. It is exactly what it takes for us to get where we want to be. All right, let's come back to the Buckeye State now. This is one where you've heard me talk. And I'll share this with you too. You've heard me talk on this program many, many times about the you run out of words, you run out of pejoratives, things to describe the Cleveland Plain steaming pile of that. I'm trying really hard not to swear today too, because it is Ash Wednesday and we're beginning the holy season of Lent. I don't know what I'm going to give up, but if I give up letting my profanity, penchant for profanity get the best of me, that would be probably a good thing for everybody. The loons who run the leftists, the anti-American, humiliating pieces of flotsam and jetsam that run the Cleveland Plain Steamer and Cleveland.com, they've kind of gone to a new low. Chris Quinn is the editor-in-chief of the Plain Steamer, and he's the one who acknowledged in an editorial back in 2024 to never cover Donald Trump fairly. And I'm paraphrasing that. I don't have to go through it again. I did almost an entire hour on it. I read it line by line, his op-ed, in which he said that, normally, what newspapers do is we give equal coverage, which they never have anyway. But, we try to keep news and opinion and so on and so forth. And we cover everything, fairly. He said in his op-ed, but when it comes to the case of Donald Trump, forget about it. We're not going to be fair. We're not going to pretend that everything is okay if he wins, and we're not going to give, hey, here's what the facts of the case are. Let you decide what you believe and what you don't. He said we're going to be biased. We're going to be anti-Donald Trump. And again, that's a paraphrase. So just to give you the baseline of where we're coming from here with the steamer, that was Chris Quinn's default message. And then about a week or two later, he followed it up with another op-ed saying, thousands and thousands of people emailed us and said, yeah, we agree, thank you. Other newspapers said, I wish we could do that at our newspaper. We could all just say, we hate Donald Trump and we're not going to give him fair coverage, no matter what kind of damage it might do to the community or to the country. We don't care. Our leftist ideals are the only things that matter to us. That's quite literally what the message from the steamer was. So, and I shared this a couple of days ago too, the op-ed from one of the other board members at the steamer, Laura Johnston, and she's pictured on your screen right now. Laura Johnston is one of those editorial board members who wrote the piece of white shame and white guilt filth that basically declared that whiteness and white people are the enemy because of their privilege, because white people like her, she said, don't have to show their papers, don't have to show their ID, don't have to deal with the targeted harassment that Black and brown people have to deal with in this immigration sweep across the country. So this was the article that she wrote and defended on this podcast that they do called Today in Ohio. This is what the steamer does and the Cleveland.com people do. And so I became acquainted with her solely by her article. I don't know her from Eve. I know she was far from Eve, but that was the argument she made, and we did a big segment on it last week. So I won't rehash that. What I will do is let you know that these are the two people you're about to hear. Chris Quinn, the insufferable piece of person on the bottom, and that's Laura Johnston on the top. And in their February 13th podcast, they decided to, essentially put a bullseye on ICE agents and also Senator Bernie Moreno. It's one of the reasons why when Senator Moreno comes on with me, we talk oftentimes about Chris Quinn and the Cleveland Plain Dealer, because it is their mission, again, to not report news, to not give the readers of the steamer or Cleveland.com a fair and accurate representation of what's going on, but to bludgeon people with their radical leftist globalist ideology. These are Marxist dividers, all, I believe, classically trained. And that's what they do. And Libs of TikTok, by the way, did this. When you gain the attention of Libs of TikTok, you have crossed into another area, by the way. Libs of TikTok put this up yesterday. Meet Laura Johnston and Chris Quinn, podcast hosts for Cleveland.com, who are attacking ICE for being the Gestapo and claiming they're operating exactly like Hitler did. This exact type of anti-ICE demonization is what leads to increased violence toward federal agents. Libs of TikTok, Chaya, her name is right. And you can experience it for yourself here. Let's listen.
And then Moreno has the idea to get aghast and name a whole bunch of Congress members in the hearing, saying they've made, quote, absolutely outrageous comments analogizing Customs and Border Patrol agents, ICE agents, to the Gestapo, a secret police. I'm sorry, that is not outrageous. That is how they're operating. Exactly. Guys in jeans, in trucks, changing their license plates, wearing masks, like just coming out of nowhere to grab people out of their homes. That is what the Gestapo did.
I think it goes deeper. I think he's so worried now about being tied to fascism, being tied to Hitler. That's why he brings up anti-Semitism.
Yes, 100%.
They're getting hammered. They are operating exactly like Hitler did. It's step by step by step, and it's a wave. Everybody can see it. Everybody's talking about it. So, well, Hitler was bad for the Jews. I'll show I'm not bad for Jewish people.
Right.
It's childish what he's trying to do, and all he did was embarrass himself and, unfortunately, Ohio.
So those are the two of the editorial board members of the Plain Steamer, Laura Johnston and Chris Quinn. And I will just say this very directly. If there is a single ICE agent that is victimized, is attacked when they're in the state of Ohio doing their job, particularly here in Northeast Ohio, there should be charges brought against these two inciters because they have incited to violence every radical nut that is opposed to the ICE deportation task forces. They have incited them to attack. And you might say, how? All they did was call them the Gestapo, the secret police. All they did was lie about them grabbing and disappearing people. All they did was malign them as being untrained guys in jeans and in unmarked pickup trucks and just grabbing people and taking them away, which is exactly how the Gestapo did it. It's exactly how Hitler's secret police did it. All he did was call these people the actual Nazis that attacked and did indeed disappear and spirit away Jews to concentration camps. Analogizing that to law enforcement officers targeting specifically illegal alien criminals in the United States who have no business being here. Hitler invaded foreign countries like Poland and grabbed residents there because of their religion or their ethnicity as Jews and took them to torture camps and gas chambers for doing nothing wrong but existing. Here, law enforcement officers are targeting illegal aliens who are harming American communities to remove them from a place where they don't belong. And they're making an analogy and saying that it's the same thing as Hitler and the secret police. And then, of course, their favorite attack line is to go after Senator Bernie Moreno, who, of course, is and just had him on 2 days ago, a staunch supporter of the ICE operations because it is exactly what the American people want: safety and security from the illegal aliens who are here, particularly the most violent of them, but those who are charged with and or convicted of crimes first. It's exactly what the American people want. It's why Donald Trump swept to that huge victory. All right. So they're going after Bernie Moreno for obvious reasons. And they're really livid because Bernie Moreno had the temerity to challenge and then defeat and beat handily their favorite son, Sherrod Brown, whose wife, Connie Schultz, used to be one of their colleagues in writing for the Steamer. They are livid that Sherrod Brown got bounced out of the Senate by Bernie Moreno, so they have targeted Bernie Moreno from the beginning. That's very, very important to note here. But back to the part about blood being on the hands of people who incite violence against people like our law enforcement agents. The Cleveland Plain Steamer and Cleveland.com have essentially put, there's a term in the mafia or in the in the cartel community called greenlit. They have greenlit for attack and assassination everybody who wears a federal badge. And maybe the loons can't tell the difference between a federal badge and a local badge. So maybe it's just every cop, every law enforcement officer that is now in the crosshairs. But that's what they've done by calling them Gestapo, secret police, Nazis, Hitler, et cetera, et cetera. Now you may say, yeah, but Bob, calling them that is not nice. Calling them that might be inaccurate. Calling them that might not be fair, but they're not actually telling people to go and attack them. So why do you say that it's a call to violence? Okay, fair enough question. But here's the answer. If I gave you a bin filled with 5,000 M&Ms and told you only 2 of those M&Ms were poison, would you scoop up a handful and eat them? Your odds are pretty doggone good. 4,998 good, tasty, chocolatey M&Ms. Only 2 of them are poison. What are the odds that you get one of the poison M&Ms? Very, very slim. Very, very slim. You could probably eat multiple handfuls of it and just go away fat and happy. Right? But would you? No, you wouldn't. Because the danger is too great that one of those 2 M&Ms is going to find its way into your scoop. And the risk is too great. That's what's happening here. For every 5,000 lunatics who hear Trump is Hitler, Bernie Moreno is like, I don't know, Goebbels or Himmler, whatever. Pick your favorite Nazi, member of the Third Reich. And that the ICE agents and the Border Patrol agents are the secret police Gestapo Nazis that the leadership tasked with going around out and rounding up the Jews. To 4,998 of every single 5,000 lunatics who hear that and say, yeah, all they'll do is say, yeah. And they'll bitch and they'll moan. Ah, doggone it. See, there it is. Already broke my ball. They'll gripe and they'll moan about it and they'll scream and they'll go on social media and they'll put up their memes and they'll talk about how dangerous the Nazis are and, ICE equals, swastika and all these other kinds of things. 4,998 of them, that's all they'll do. But it's the 2 remaining. It's the tiny percentile of lunatics. And it only takes a very tiny percent that are going to go out there and they're already living on the razor's edge. They're already just infuriated, but that they have to share this country with these horrible, racist, Nazi-loving bastard conservatives. And we got to get them. We got to get them. And they take guns to protests. And then they physically intervene with, and interfere with, rather, and agitate and obstruct and box in and attack those mean, nasty, degenerate, disgusting Nazis that are out there. And they start blasting and they start attacking. It only takes that 1 or 2, that 0.5% of a large, massive number of people to be on the lunatic fringe, the fringes of sanity and insanity, the fringes of reasonable disagreement with politics and unreasonable attacks. That lunatic fringe is what I worry about. And that's exactly what some of the people in the comments of that post there by Libs of TikTok on the commentary from the Steamers they're saying. This isn't free speech. It's let me pop it back up here so you know what I'm talking about. Sorry. I want you to kind of see the same things I see. I really try to make this as visually appealing as possible. This isn't free speech. It's incitement of violence. Prosecute them. They are the real threat to America. They sell out America so the Democrats can gain power. They don't care about anything else. No, I'm not going to do that. Those are both dudes, right? No, Laura Johnston, to my knowledge, is not a dude, but Chris Quinn is, although he's not very dudeish either. I might think that they're both a little bit more feminine than not. Nazis were literally the opposite of fascism. They were socialism, where people were supposed to give up their rights for the collective. Make no mistake, Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati, along with a few other smaller cities in Ohio, are an arm of the Democratic Party. Rural Ohio rejects socialism. Urban Ohio embraces it. Wonder why? That is an accurate statement. So proud of these 2 brave anti-Americans, standing tall with rapists, pedos, murderers, gangbangers, illegal criminals, human traffickers, money laundering, fraud, making sure the thousands who are murdered at the nads of these evil invaders get not one scrap of sympathy. Bravo. Feel free to contact them at their place of business and inform them of their crimes. They may be completely unaware they are engaged in sedition which is punishable by up to 20 years in federal prison. I didn't write these laws, but I feel everyone should be aware of them. 18 U.S. Code 2384. If you oppose by force the authority thereof, or by force to prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States, you are guilty of seditious conspiracy or sedition. And this is the kind of thing where they are literally encouraging people to go out there and obstruct, hinder, prevent, delay the execution of federal law, which says you can't be here illegally, particularly if you are a violent or a criminal illegal alien beyond just your crime of coming into this country without permission. The Dems overwhelmingly supported ICE when it was created and never had a problem with them until Trump. That is exactly right. Let's go back to Hillary, and that's enough of the commentary from the online community there. But let's go back to Hillary for a moment. We played that clip at the security conference as well, where she was bragging and flexing about how her husband, used ICE. Actually, it was called INS then, but used ICE and deported people more than Trump ever did. Bragging about deporting people, which we're told today is just awful and horrible and cannot ever be allowed. But bragged that his ICE, his INS, deported all of these people without anybody being killed. And then she said Barack Obama deported more people than Trump did too, and nobody got killed. And she's flexing that like, look at how much better at this than they are. But that gets into the point that I made yesterday. That's because when their administrations were out there doing some semblance, any semblance of border security and deportation of illegal aliens, conservatives weren't getting in their way. Republicans weren't getting in the way of Barack Obama and saying, boy, we don't like that Obama. Let's stop him from deporting criminal illegal aliens. Actually, no, that's a really good thing. It's one of the few decent things he's doing. We probably should support that. Let's go home. That's what we did. Actually, didn't even have to go home because nobody came out, because we have reasonable, common, sensible positions that say federal law should be followed. The law says you can't come into the country illegally. You can't line jump. You can't bypass everybody who's waiting at the border, papers in hand, to become Americans, or to at least come to the United States and then hopefully become citizens eventually. People who are waiting and doing it the right way, like the family of Bernie Moreno. And that's one of the reasons why Chris Soyboy Quinn and Laura Johnston, an awful, if ever I've seen an awful, affluent, white, female, liberal, awful. That's one of the other reasons they hate him. He speaks from a place of experience. He's got more authority on this issue than most because he is a legal immigrant to this country. His family didn't jump the line, didn't cross the border, didn't smuggle it in the back of a truck, and then spent the last 20 or 30 years dodging ICE agent deportation. They're probably saying this is how it's supposed to be done. And they are like an extraordinarily high percentage of Hispanics who are in this country legally. They are disgusted by the illegal invaders. That's why they voted for Trump. That's why Trump gained such a massive number of the Hispanic voters in this past election, and also in 2020 and in 2016, because he said, we're going to crack down on the illegal immigrants who are coming in here and again, jumping the line and putting people like the Marinos back, further back, the next, wave of Marinos who are here to do this legally. So it's one of the other reasons why they despise him, talking about the steamer. That and the fact that he beat Sherrod Brown. But you do understand the point, yes? You do understand that when they call the ICE agents Gestapo and Nazis, they are emboldening the lunatic fringe, that one or two M&Ms in that 5,000 M&M bin that might be dangerous. They're activating them. And who's to say one of them isn't the next James Hodgkins, I think it was, or Hodgkinson, whatever it was, the nut, who was just one of the Bernie bros who was outraged and angry at the Republicans, but it only took the one to get a gun and go to the Republican congressional baseball team's practice and open fire on the Republican Congress members down below, nearly killed Steve Scalise, and only the others were only saved by quick thinking Capitol police officers who were down there providing security, who fired at Hodgkinson. It doesn't take many of these nuts to come out and shoot somebody in the back in broad daylight, like Luigi Mangione did, because people have ramped up. The radical leftists ramped up in their Medicare for all, socialized medicine in the United States. Anger and fury at the health insurance companies that a health insurance executive is walking down the street in New York City in broad daylight, and it only took one nut to end his life, to come up and shoot him in the back. It only takes one nut to climb up on a rooftop of a very unprotected and unsecured area to take that shot at Donald Trump. Of course, it took two of them, because then just a few months later, another one tried it at the golf course. It doesn't mean all liberal Democrats listening to people like the Quinn Johnston steamer hour there. It doesn't mean that they're all going to take violent actions against ICE agents and conservative politicians. But it doesn't take all of them. It takes just one or two of them, the lunatic fringe. And that's who they're appealing to when they're out there calling them all of those horrific names. And I'm going to play it again, because I want to really underscore an impact and make sure you understand the impact of this. So again, Chris Quinn, editor-in-chief of the Steamer, and Laura Johnston, also on the editorial board of the Steamer, describing American citizens, maybe your father, maybe your son, maybe your brother, maybe your husband. Most of them are male. Sorry, not trying to discriminate here. But maybe somebody in your family, maybe your neighbor, maybe somebody you graduated school with, who is proudly working in federal law enforcement as a member of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Out there, knowing that there is a list of people that they're targeting in this given city. Maybe it's Cleveland. Maybe it's Columbus. Maybe it was Minneapolis. And they got pictures of these people that they're targeting. Criminal aliens charged with murder, rape, child assault, child trafficking, sex trafficking, and on down the line. And I'm going to go out there and do something good for my community. I'm going to go hunt these people down, and we're going to arrest them. And going to bring them in either for trial and prison and then deportation, or straight to deportation. Either way, I'm wearing a badge, and I'm doing something that every badge wearer has always done: protect and serve. Maybe that member of your family, like I said, is out there doing that job, knowing that they're trying to protect and preserve and serve. And while they're out there on the job, you've got nut jobs like this, energizing and fueling a lunatic fringe to see them as Nazi police, as members of one of the most feared units of any authoritarian in modern American history, maybe world history. That your neighbor, your friend, your son, your husband, your dad, whatever, out there doing their job to protect and serve, are being called these things by these people.
And then Moreno has the idea to get aghast and name a whole bunch of Congress members in the hearing, saying they've made, quote, absolutely outrageous comments analogizing Customs and Border Patrol agents, ICE agents, to the Gestapo, a secret police. I'm sorry, that is not outrageous. That is how they're operating. Exactly. Guys in jeans, in trucks, changing their license plates, wearing masks, like just coming out of nowhere to grab people out of their...
You stupid... Again, I'm watching profanity. I've got to give up swearing for Lent. I do. If you two quarter wits don't understand why these agents are concealing their identities and why they're changing their license plates, why they don't want to be tracked down and doxxed, if you don't understand that, honestly, you have no business commenting publicly on anything. The reason they do those things is literally because of you. because you are the dangers that they have to face. You are the ones that are weaponizing, literally weaponizing the lunatic fringe that is going out there to get them, that are going to harass their wives. They're going to harass their children. They're going to make their children get beat up in schools, where school teachers and administrators are telling the school students to get out there and wave their signs and chant "Ice out now." If not, F ICE, which we're seeing all over the place too. The children of those agents are in those schools. The children of the victims of the degenerate criminals, the illegal alien criminals that are being sought by ICE, are also in those schools. They don't want to be a part of that protest. They're actually on the side of the agents who are trying to protect and serve, but they're going to get them attacked if you dox them. That's why they're out there dressing in attire that is not going to allow themselves to be identified, including the masks, including things like taking the license plates off of their vehicles, because they don't want to be tracked back and have their families targeted. And these nut jobs think they deserve it because, again, they think these are secret police. These are Gestapo. These are Nazis.
Like just coming out of nowhere to grab people out of their homes. That is what the Gestapo did.
I think it goes deeper. I think he's so worried now about being tied to fascism, being tied to Hitler. That's why he brings up anti-Semitism.
I would like both of these stupid sons of plain dealer individuals. I want you to define fascism, then define socialism, then define communism, then define Marxism, and watch you sit there and stammer like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez at a question about Taiwan, and watch you suffer and struggle to try to explain it because you don't know what the words mean. And yet you want to call Bernie Moreno a fascist and Donald Trump a fascist. You have no earthly idea what the differences are, which, by the way, are minuscule. You love communism and socialism, and it's in your pages of the steamer every day, but you pretend to be opposed to fascism. It's all authoritarianism. The Nazis, N-A-Z-I, it actually stood for the National Socialist Party. Socialism and fascism are brothers. You love one and claim to despise the other. No, you just need to create an enemy. And the enemy of all things leftist, you believe, is the enemy of the people. And so you go into the steamer, the pages of the steamer, or the screens of Cleveland.com and your little podcast there, and you try to weaponize people against your enemies, including these agents who are our brothers and our fathers and husbands and sons and so forth, out there protecting and serving the community from the actual. You defended Joe Biden and his importing of 12 to 20 million illegal aliens, including, what did I hear yesterday from Tricia McLaughlin? Over 1,000 terrorists have been apprehended since Trump took office again. Not to mention tens and hundreds of thousands, literally 2 to 3 million illegal aliens, most of whom, 70% of whom, have also criminal records, either charged with or convicted of crimes. These agents are out there protecting the people of this country against those dangerous, violent threats, and you are trying to weaponize people against the agents.
Yes, 100%.
They're getting hammered. They are operating exactly like Hitler did. It's step by step by step, and it's a wave. Everybody can see it. Everybody's talking about it. So, well, Hitler was bad for the Jews. I'll show I'm not bad for Jewish people.
Right.
It's childish what he's trying to do, and all he did was embarrass himself. And
Chris Quinn just called Senator Bernie Moreno childish. Chris Quinn is on their little podcast calling our sons, again, mostly, there are some, a very, very few, I think, but female agents, but calling our federal law enforcement officers Nazis who are kidnapping people from, quote, their homes, and all of the horrific things that you just heard them say. And then he's calling Bernie Moreno childish. I just can't really, I can't with these people. We'll check into the chat here in just a moment, but first, let me remind you about Medicare. If you are a senior, if you are of Medicare age, if you are already on Medicare, or if you're about to age into it, you need to know where to go for answers because it's very confusing. It's very, very complicated. What's the opposite of complicated? That answer is simple. That's why Mark King has been keeping Medicare simple for nearly 40 years. KeepingMedicareSimple.com is the website. I trust I've been dealing with Mark, and I have talked to so many listeners of mine or now viewers of the podcast who have thanked me for turning them on to Mark King because they now have an affordable Medicare plan for them. It fits their needs, their prescription drug needs, their particular providers, everything that they need to find that is very, very complicated in the Medicare system, they found through Mark King, and they thank me for that. And then you will too. Mark is literally, there's no one more knowledgeable about this. Let's just put it that way in Northeast Ohio. When you do this for over 40 years, you understand how Medicare works. You understand what coverages people need. You understand what options are available to them. And Mark is able to present that to all of his clients in such a clear and concise way that they walk away having found the best policy for them, saved money in the process. Mark isn't going to steer you to one insurance provider or another because it benefits him. No. He's going to give you options and tell you what all of these different plans offer and all of these different insurers offer. That's what Keeping Medicare Simple is all about. So if you have a need, 440-832-8936. The window ends on March 1st. So you want to make this call, 440-832-8936. You can also go onto that website, keepingmedicaresimple.com, keepingmedicaresimple.com. Mark was one of the first people to get in when we started this show, this online show, and this movement and this mission to get in and say, I want to support it. I want to sponsor it. And thanks to him, here we are. So thank you to Mark King, and make sure people call Mark. He is one of the good guys, and he'll make sure that your Medicare experience is a good one. All right. And by the way, Mark gets it too. Mark knows that what we're doing is supporting law enforcement. Mark knows that we are supporting victims and would-be victims and trying to prevent them from being victimized. Everybody who supports this show financially, anybody who drops anything into the tip jar there on the Rumble page, the Rumble Rants button with an X. Oh, by the way, not with an X, with a $sign on it. Somebody emailed me a few days ago, maybe even a week or two ago, and I apologize because I didn't find it until last night in my email. Boy, that's a big, bold red thing. I don't like that Bob France in the corner. That's too ostentatious. I got to get rid of that. Sorry. I'm working in real time here without a net. Let's see. Is this one a little bit better? Yeah, that's a little bit better. Anyway, somebody had emailed me and asked me and said, Bob, I want to donate to the cause because I want to make sure that this show stays on and I want to make sure that this show grows and so forth. But when I clicked the tip jar or the donate button, it said something about randomized. In fact, again, I like to try to do these things accurately, and I will do them in real time. Let me get to my email because I just found it last night. So I ought to be able to have it in my sent mail. Yeah, here it is. So Joe said, Bob, I asked this in the chat, but no one really knows for sure. I am confused. Anyone, the $sign and the gift box, is that donation going directly to Strictly Speaking? What is this statement? Rumble will randomize recipients. I don't want Rumble giving my donation to anything other than Strictly Speaking. Thanks. And Joe, this apparently was sent to me on the 12th, so 6 days ago. So my apologies for the delay in seeing this. I did not know it did that. So I looked into it. And what I found is that there are two different types of donate buttons there on the Rumble channel. The general donation platform, tips that you drop there can be randomized. It's basically a generic donate fund to support content creators who are online and doing shows like this or things of that nature. That's the one to avoid because it would be randomized. The Rumble Rants button, that's the one with the $sign on it. If you look below it right now or right below the chat, 100% of those donations are not randomized. They don't go to other creators. It is tied directly to this channel and this mission and this program. So that is the answer. That's the quick answer to the question. So, and I thank you for asking that question. I'm trying to make sure I'm as clear and as transparent as possible for everybody. So yeah, the donations that you make, if you are able to make donations to the show through the Rumble Rants thing or through any of the other things you see scrolling across the screen most times, I don't think it is scrolling across the screen right now. There it is. Any of those other donation places certainly are perfectly acceptable to support the show. As people who are also supporting us by way of being unfiltered insiders on our local community, the locals community, we had our meeting a couple of nights ago. And we'll have another one, an online meeting tomorrow night to talk about more of the planning of our event that's coming up. But as they know, this show is not supported, obviously, by a giant radio corporation. This show is supported only by its host and by its fans. It's Patriot supported. So that's what this is about, as well as our foundational partners like Americans for Prosperity and Keeping Medicare Simple, and hopefully a couple of other supportive organizations that have expressed an interest as well coming online soon. But that's what this is all about. And so all of those who know, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. We can't do this without you because I can't self-fund for much longer than what I'm doing right now. So we need the support of patriots who want to make a difference in the state of Ohio, want to make a difference in our republic. So that's what this is really all for. Speaking of making a difference in the state of Ohio, our next guest is going to join me after this short time out here, and we're going to talk about protecting and preserving the health of Ohioans by way of giving them medical freedom. It has been her driving ambition and her mission. How about that? A little rhyme. Her mission and her ambition to secure the freedom for all Ohioans to choose their own health care and to decide what they do with their bodies and what they don't, from mandatory vaccines to obviously what happened during the pandemic and so much more. She has been fighting in the Ohio State Legislature by trying to influence those legislators, by drafting bills, getting them sponsored, getting them introduced, watching many of them fall to defeat or never get votes at all. And she's frustrated by it. And that's why she said, well, if I can't make the legislators do what needs to be done here, then I'll become one of them. She's running for state representative. We're going to talk to her coming up here in just a couple of moments after this very short timeout on Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Give me just a few, and we'll come back with that guest and that conversation. And I think you're going to want to be a part of that. All right, that's long enough of the timeout. We are refreshed and ready to finish strong. It is 33 minutes after the hour. And if you are watching this on delay a little bit later on, do me a favor. You found it on the channel. How about sharing it with someone else? Make sure you right-click on the URL to the video you're watching right now and send it to a conservative in your email list or on your text list. Any place where you have other conservatives who may or may not know about this show, do me a favor, copy it and send it along to them. Then they'll be able to hear from my next guest, who is joining us right now. As described, she is a champion for medical freedom in the state of Ohio. She's been working very hard with legislators for years to try to make sure that we do have that freedom. Now she wants to be one of those legislators herself. Let's welcome to the program, Stephanie Stock. Stephanie, good morning.
Bob. How are you doing?
I am well. How are you?
Good. I love your new setup. Looking good over there.
Yours looks great too, but I feel like a giant next to you because of how you're lower. Can you tip your camera at all so you can rise yourself up higher to my height?
I'd have to like stand up. I don't know. I don't know if I can. You want to like more body? Is that better?
Yeah. Or
Okay.
maybe closer helps a little bit. There you go.
Maybe,
That's
okay.
a little bit better.
You need my head to be bigger. I need a bigger head. I'm not
Stephanie,
a legislator yet. Just kidding.
Oh, well done.
No, there's a lot of good ones down there, Bob.
I know
Our problem is always, for a long time, has been leadership. We got a lot of good legislators.
That's a great point. And I want to let you tell that story a little bit too as we get going here. So, Stephanie, before, I think most of my viewers on this podcast, have been listeners to the radio show prior, so they know who you are. You've been on with me a number of times, but just for any newbies, because we're trying to reach as many new people as possible every single day, let's talk about OAMF. Talk about what you do and why you do it and how you do it and what led you now to make the decision and the announcement that you just made yesterday, officially, now that you know that you're going to be on the ballot, about your run for the Ohio House. Tell us about the whole background.
So OAMF started back in 2015. Most of us were healthcare professionals and parents who were we were wanting vaccine choice because there were, mandates in healthcare clear back in 2012 for flu shot and even MMR and some of these other shots. So for those of us that had religious beliefs or, scientific reasons why we didn't want to do it, we were fighting for that. And then we had parents who were worried about losing the current exemption rights in the state because there were a lot of attacks on those. So we kind of formed together. And then that's when we began. And we have been introducing legislation every assembly since then with growing support. Obviously, prior to 2020, it's a heavy lift now, but it's a really heavy lift then. We had it was like Christina Hagan, one bill sponsor at the beginning. Not a lot of support from legislators. People were like, yeah, maybe, not really sure. COVID hit, and then pretty much all the people were on board with medical freedom. We were not the crazy folks anymore. We were like, oh my gosh, what can we do? This is terrible. And legislators, started getting on board too. And at this point, pretty much all Republicans will tell you whether or not they want to take the shot. They really support your right to choose. They don't think your government should tell you. They don't think your boss should tell you. It's a pretty standard kind of Republican thing now. It's very mainstream. And for the Republican legislators, for the most part, it's pretty mainstream now too. It's just leadership that gets in the way of getting these bills passed. So our top priorities have been obviously vaccine choice without discrimination in the workplace, school, or medical care. And then once COVID hit and we saw the restrictions on getting the drugs you needed, right, or having drug choice options other than remdesivir and ventilators, we realized those things were being denied. So that was when we came out with HB 73, the Jeff, Dave, and Angie Health Provider Protection Act that went through the House.
Let me ask you to slow down a little bit. You're a fast talker.
I know. I'm always told slow down.
And because so much of what you're saying needs further explanation, and I don't know when to cut in. So
no, you're fine.
You mentioned very, very quickly the David and Angie Patient Protection Act, for example. You talked about the remdesivir and the ventilators. I want to hit a little bit of this. And I don't mean to slow your roll, but
no, that's okay. You need to slow my roll because I tend to.
But when we talk about the freedom to make our own medical decisions, you started out by talking about the shot, not just the shot, not just the COVID shot, which of course was the impetus for a lot of this, or for a lot of people, it was the pandemic, but the vaccine schedule. all of those shots, making every kid get these, this round of shots that may or may not, and I'm not going to solve it here with you about whether or not it causes autism, but whether there are any dramatic vaccine injuries that happen to people, and why the number of vaccines that have been required through the years in the United States has just skyrocketed from a couple, common sense things, whether it be polio or whatever, to now there's like 72 shots you have to have by the time you're 18 or whatever it is. I hear those numbers thrown around all the time. So start there if you can, Stephanie, about OAMF, and that's Ohio Advocates for Medical Freedom. For those who are not scoring at home, let's try to keep track of that. Talk about that aspect of this and why that drove you to start OAMF.
So we had a lot of our families that were worried about keeping the exemptions had a reason for that. Many of them had vaccine injured children. At that time in 2015, 2016 was when the first documentary Vaxxed came out. And now people have heard of Vaxxed, Del Bigtree, Bobby Kennedy, all of that has all, kind of surfaced. They were all involved early on with trying to let parents know, hey, you're not alone. Like they started reaching out. There was a bus that drove around, the Vaxxed bus. Parents were signing their children's name. My child was injured. It became sort of a coalition of parents that were acknowledging each other because the system had basically just dropped them. They said, oh, it's not a vaccine injury. This is just coincidental. We all heard coincidence with the COVID shot as well. But this was going on long before that. So families were left trying to figure out how to navigate vaccine court. It's a very difficult process. Less than 5% of the cases that even get through to that get compensated. And it's not a lot. And when you're talking about autism or some other profound injury, these families can be into $1 million or $2 million in the lifetime of raising that child. And then you have the burden on the system. If they're severe, they have to go into a home. You hear about all the time. There was just a story a couple of days ago. 3 autistic young men, I think they were in their early 20s, were left in a vehicle. The caregiver left them in a vehicle. They turned the car on when they were in the garage and they died of carbon monoxide poisoning, or, autistic children wandering off and drowning. I mean, there's so many issues with this, and it affects our society as a whole because of not only how it affects the families and the person themselves that's injured, but how it affects us, in the school systems, et cetera, the burden on the system. This stuff is costly. And now autism is like 1 in 34. So it can no longer be ignored, but those were the kind of parents that were emerging initially. And that is why we knew it was so important. We had to keep these exemptions, not only for those that already had injured children, but for those that were concerned because they'd seen a loved one injured. I mean, it's no different, right? With the COVID shot, somebody saw somebody hurt and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get that, right? I don't want to do that. I don't trust it now. But if you don't have that choice, you don't have freedom. So
and that's what that's what it's about. And I really want to underscore that point. You're not saying that there should be no COVID shots available, but you cannot. And what you have written legislation for and have pushed and worked on with current legislators is saying, like you said before, your boss can't tell you whether or not you take that. Your school, your university, or whatever the case might be, cannot tell you don't have a choice. That's what freedom is all about. Because I wanted nothing to do with it at the beginning. And it doesn't even have to be about vaccine injury that is easily identifiable. It can simply be about the fact that I know people who got the shot and then got COVID. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So if it's not going to stop me from getting COVID anyway, which they told us it was safe and effective, and I see it's not effective, I might also not be safe here. At least I want to be able to make up my mind on that. And that's what you guys at OAMF pushed, right?
Yes, exactly. And we've been called anti-vaccine from the get-go, but we've never once introduced a bill to ban anything. All we want is freedom of choice without discrimination. And that is fair. I mean, if we can't get behind that, what can we get behind, right? That's your body. That's your most personal property. You're allowed to defend your home, your wife, your kids, but you can't shoot your boss. So when they try to force vaccinate you can't defend yourself, right? So the only defense you have is law. And that is one of the few things the government should do, is protect your ability to protect your most important piece of property, which is your own body and the bodies of your children. So I'm not a big government person. I don't like them involved in much. But I do think they need to protect us from other people trying to invade our own personal bodies.
Well, that's a really important thing to say, considering now you want to be a part of our big government.
I know.
Which
I want
we'll
to
talk
cut it,
about.
Bob. I want to slash it as much as
I
possible.
know you do. I know you do. And want to get to the campaign and where you're running and what district and so on and so forth in a moment. But now you started to list off and rip off some of the names of the legislation, the pieces of legislation that you guys have sponsored. Let's do that a little slower. Give me some of the most important pressing legislation that people should know about, because it's one thing to support you in running for office to be a part of this, but we already have representatives and we need them to act on this. And you mentioned leadership as well. So tell us what the most important pieces that you have been working on that are sitting in limbo in committee or what have you right now.
Sure. So number one priority bill right now and closest to actually getting to the finish line is HB 12, the Jeff, Dave, and Angie Right to Try Act. That has been brought back because it was decimated in the Senate last assembly. We got it through the House in 6 months. That bill was introduced in 2023. By June of 2023, it went to the Senate. And I know we've gone over at length how that bill went down. It was held by Steve Huffman and then completely changed 2 weeks before assembly ended in 24. And it came out just a monster, just opposite of everything that we did. And so it had to be killed in the House.
Can you give me one or two sentences on what the Right to Try Act says?
Sure. So that prevented a pharmacist from obstructing your right to access a drug that your doctor had prescribed and you had consented to, assuming that drug was not an abortifacient, a drug used for euthanasia, that it was FDA approved, and that it was not in the realm of the safe. So it wasn't a puberty blocker for children, nothing like that. So it was just all regular FDA approved drugs, but they may be
things like hydroxychloroquine,
yes.
which became the boogeyman, and
Yes.
well, that wasn't the horse one. What was the other one?
No, ivermectin, and even budesonide, which is like given to preemies. It's a breathing treatment even given to preemies. That was denied to patients. So and then they were also, as you know, they were forcing them on ventilators. They were starving and dehydrating them. We did get that provision passed, so you can no longer starve or dehydrate a patient in the hospital. Imagine having to write legislation for that, Bob. That was pretty astounding, but at least they passed that one. I think they had a little bit of a conscience on that one. But that bill protects your right to be able to access those drugs. And, for the pharmacist, unless it's a life-threatening, now obviously a pharmacist is there for a reason, right? If it's a truly life-threatening issue, then they can say, hey, I can't fill that. That's dangerous for you. And that's in the bill. What they can't do is say, oh, I don't believe it works for that. I'm not going to give it to you. That needs to stop. The doctor should be having the final say. They know their patients. The pharmacist is the pharmacist. They're just supposed to double check, make sure things are right.
So what's the status of this? Is HB 12, right?
This is HB 12. It has been
What's the status right now?
It has had the votes in committee and on the House floor since last June, and Matt Huffman won't allow the vote. Jean Schmidt wants to call it. She's the chair of health, but as you know, no votes get called unless the speaker says they can get called. So we've been in back and forth, we've even tried to come up with, okay, what if we just made it like the top 5 drugs that were denied? You can't refuse those. Let's start there and come back for the rest. Absolutely will not cave on anything. Huffman believes pharmacists should have the final say between you and your doctor. So it's rough too, because even our Vivek's likely to be our next governor. He supports the bill. Leadership in the Senate and the House both know he supports the bill. So I find it fascinating that even knowing that they would still obstruct that bill from moving. And we have a companion in the Senate. We've had SB 209 in the Senate under Reynolds and Catrona since last, I believe it was May. So that's been sitting there that hasn't even gotten sponsor testimony. At least we've gone through the process. So, I mean, Macaulay's going to be LG, right? And he's supposed to be getting Vivek's agenda done. And, we've got a bill over there that hasn't even moved under his watch. So I hope, I hope that he would get that moving, because that's a priority legislation. We shouldn't have to wait till next year.
So real quick, just because I want to get to some of the other bills.
Sure.
What is Speaker Huffman's stated objection to bringing it to a vote. You said, your paraphrase was, he thinks that your pharmacist should have the final say on everything and that they can overrule your doctors. Is that what he has said out loud? What has his stated position been?
Yes, that's his stated position. He wants us to put in the bill that the pharmacist can refuse to fill as long as they write down their reason, whatever that reason is.
No matter the reason.
Essentially guts the bill. It guts the bill. I mean, there's no point to the bill then, right? I mean,
Right.
I think we can all agree on that. That's why
Yeah.
the bill was written. So
Okay.
that's how you
give me another number. Give me another number, another piece that you're working on right now that you are trying desperately to pass. And again, that have led you to take the drastic step of, I'll go into the House and do it myself.
right. So HB 112, this is the Vaccine Choice Conscientious Right to Refuse Act. That was introduced last March. It's in the judicial, which is an odd place to put it, but that's where Huffman put it. And so it did get sponsor testimony last month, but that is the only time it's moved. Again, the chair doesn't like that one. So Jim Thomas doesn't like that bill. He does not believe. He thinks vaccines are great and he doesn't think we should have a choice. And Huffman's not going to push him because he doesn't like the bill. So that bill is sitting there. That bill did get out of committee last assembly under DJ Swearingen, but did not make it to the floor. So we at least have seen that some legislators will vote on that bill. And it has a lot of co-sponsors. I think we had 32 or 34 co-sponsors on that bill. We had 42 on Right to Try. And I think we have something like 20 something on HB 561, which is the Parental Choice Act. And that bill will ensure that all daycares and all K through 12 schools honor exemptions, because we have a lot of, especially daycares, that are not honoring, and some schools.
Hugely important.
Mm-hmm. And then also it will require them to inform parents that they have a right to exemption. So when they say, hey, you have to get these 10 shots for school, it's required, or you're kicked out by October 14th. They have to also say, unless you take a conscientious, religious, or medical exemption, and here's the information on that. So we're not asking for a lot. That's transparency.
Yeah. So when you say you've got 32 co-sponsors on that, and the it used to be David Angie Patient Protection Act, right? Now it's Right to Try Act, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You had 42 for that one. How
Yes.
many Republican House members are there?
Right now, I think there's 64. I think there's 64.
So 42 out of 64 are co-sponsoring the bill, not just saying I would vote for it. They have their name on it.
Yeah, they've already
42 out of 64, and that doesn't move the Speaker of the House. I mean, why are they not like en masse marching in and saying, Matt, we're all for this. 42 of our 66 member caucus is here in support of this. Will you please bring it to a vote? Why isn't there more pressure being put on those who would put their name on the actual bill, Stephanie?
Yeah, and I mean, it's not conventional for a candidate to say this, but most of them are afraid of Matt Huffman. If you cross Matt Huffman, he'll remove you as chair. If you cross Matt Huffman, he will have you primaried like he did with Ron Ferguson. He had Hoagland primary Ron Ferguson.
But isn't there, shouldn't there be, it's an old adage about safety in numbers, but I mean, you can't do that to 42 people, right?
Right. And that comes down to some bravery, I think. And that's another reason I'd like to go down there and be like, hey guys, we can do this. Let's all stand up. Or even better, let's choose a new speaker. One that actually calls votes. I mean, that's not a crazy idea. Why don't we try it? I think that I think legislators have gotten so used to, Bob, to being in this box where this is where you stay. This is the sandbox we've got to stay in. We can't step out of this. What do we do? And it's kind of like with the COVID mandates. If all of the nurses had just walked out, Bob, they wouldn't have been able to do it. But this one had 2 kids at home and they were worried. What if it didn't happen? What if us 3 go out and the other 10 don't show and we're out there and we get fired? There's this fear that everyone's not going to march out on the battlefield together. And so everyone just looks around and they don't do it. Or you have a few that get loud, like Rep. Gross. She's always been very, very loud on the issue and trying to push. But like you said, you have to have the numbers. And I don't know what it takes to get these folks to step out and say, we can do this. And maybe they just need a few more legislators down there that say, hey, we can, let's join arms. Let's knock this out, man. We can do this. We're bigger than one man.
Okay.
And these people need us to represent them.
So you've been a lobbyist, activist, whatever you want to call yourself, and trying to work with these legislators. You're writing these bills. Now you're saying, I've got to get inside. I've got to get inside the house. I'm not able to get enough done from, the outside you've been doing since 2015. Tell me about what made you decide to finally take this step. You've been thinking about it, and where you're running, what counties, what people are encompassed by the district you're running in.
Sure. So I'm running in House District 31, which is about half of Summit County. It's Richfield, part of Boston, Copley, Cuyahoga Falls, Norton, and Barberton. And, Bill Romer termed out, so it's an open seat. It's always easier to run for a seat when it's open, obviously, because you don't have so much pushback from going against an incumbent. So I knew well enough not to try that. So I thought, it's an open seat. There's just one other person running. Let's see what happens. So I thought I'd like to try to get on the inside and see if, maybe we can stir up some courage in there. I don't have to look for bill sponsors. I can just drop them when I want, right? So that cuts that part out. And, maybe just coming alongside and just trying to really motivate. I've done everything I can do from the outside. And I'm going to continue to do that. Win or lose, I'm going to continue to do that. But I just feel like it's time to bring some of that fire and passion on the inside and maybe wake up some sleeping giants down there that maybe they will get some gumption and be like, you know what, we can do this too. We can do this too. Let's do it. And so that's kind of what's motivating me. And obviously medical freedom will be a top priority, but I care about things like restricting these data centers. That's a huge problem. We've got to cut that. But the budget's awful. I will not be voting for things like, $600 million Browns bonds. I'll be one of the no button pushers over there. We need to cut fraud. The fraud situation's crazy. I always want to protect guns, life at all stages. And I just basically want to be a voice for the people on the inside. I'm working for them. I don't care about lobbyists. I'm marked safe from any Epstein money. I mean, none of the bad guys want to give me money, Bob, because even if they did, I'd use it for something that would drive them crazy. So they're not going to give me any money. So you don't have to worry about that. I've worked for free for all this time. I know you get paid to be a legislator. That'll be a nice change. Imagine what I would do for $70,000 a year when I'm already doing all that I'm doing now for free. So hey, just let me at him, Bob. I'm ready to go.
Stephanie, I have not agreed with every single thing you have done or said over the years. You and I have had some discussions and debates, a lot of text discussions as well. It's always been very, very productive and civil, and agree to disagree on the very few things that we have disagreed upon. But I will tell you, you're running for office from everything that I can gather for the right reason. People call it serving, serving their state or their country or whatever the case might be. But a lot of people aren't in it to serve others. They're in it for self-serving reasons, because of what you just said. And you're right. You've been doing this for free from the outside for 10 years. It dominates a massive portion, it would appear to me, from not living in your home, but it dominates a large portion of your life. You're passionate about it for the right reasons. And that's the right reason to serve. So I'm really, really glad to know you're doing this for the right reasons. A lot of people I would not ascribe those to, but I know you are doing this for the right reason. So I have a huge amount of respect for you for that. The bills that you have been pushing are absolutely complete common sense to me. And I think only people who are perhaps conflicted a little bit, if they're in public office, maybe by relationships or even donor relationships, those are the only people that I think would have a problem with some of the things you're proposing. So getting you into the State House and being able to drop these things, as you say, and advocate, you're an advocate. Yeah. Ohio Advocates for Medical Freedom, to advocate from the inside, I think, is a huge thing. And I really, really wish you well in that endeavor. But as you know, it takes money to run any campaign. I don't care if you're running for governor or for state representative or school board. How can people support your campaign?
So I still have to set up with the SOS. I didn't want to get my treasurer yet. I wanted to make sure I got certified. So I just found out yesterday. So as soon as I have my treasurer set up and I'm filed with SOS, I'll be putting out an announcement and letting people know where they can donate to help make this thing go and get the message out. Because I feel like my message is going to be pretty well received by the average Ohioan. I think they would be refreshed to know I don't want to just do ribbon cuttings. I don't want Groundhog Appreciation Day. I want to pass real legislation for real people that matters and it's going to affect them in their own communities. And not just for my own district, but for everybody, because every legislator works for every person in this state. So I dislike this. I'm only going to talk to you if you're in my district. Now, I serve everybody if I get in there. I serve everybody right now, so nothing's going to change. I'm working for every Ohioan in
So
this state.
do you have a campaign website set up yet?
Nope, but I will soon. So as soon as I have that, I will definitely let you know. And
you got a domain? Is stephaniestock.com or
yeah,
Stephanie Stock or anything?
I think it's gonna be Stephanie Stock for Ohio.com.
Got it. I just want to give people a heads up. I want people to look for it. And
I've got a Facebook page up, so they can follow me there. I'm just Stephanie Stock on Twitter. I don't think I'm going to open a campaign page on Twitter. I'm not really going to say much different as myself as I would as a as a candidate. I'm going to be true to myself. So you can follow me on either of those pages.
Well, I want to encourage people to do that, and also to visit the OAMF page, right? It's oamf.org.
Yep, ohioamf.org. And if you click on the legislative initiatives, we have one-click calls to action for all these bills. So all you have to do is click on it, enter your information. It'll send the email right to the appropriate legislators for you.
Stephanie, thank you for coming on. Congratulations on the announcement. I know this was something that was you have been thinking about for a very long time, and you finally pulled the trigger. Once you finally got certified yesterday, it's a big day for you, and I'm very happy for you. And I hope you have a very successful campaign. I think Ohioans need to hear your message. I don't know what the votes are going to turn out to be. I don't know who the other people in the race are going to be, but you are going to be a force to be reckoned with, as you have been just in the medical freedom field in the issue for the last 10 years. And so I hope that continues into the State House. So thank you for doing this. Congrats to you. And obviously we'll be in touch as you get further into this campaign. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bob, for being my person to get it announced. We've been together a long time.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. And you were doing a remarkable job, Stephanie. So congrats on this, and we'll continue to partner in this endeavor into the future. I promise you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Bye-bye.
All right, there you go. That is Stephanie Stock. She's doing some good work. She really is. And I really meant what I said. There are a lot of people who get into politics because they want a job that's going to lead them to their next job, and they want to get to the next one, and they want to get rich, and they want to be, influential for reasons that are less, what's the word I'm looking for here? With less concern for others than themselves, self-serving as opposed to being in service to others. I think that woman is serving others. That's what her goal is. She wants to serve other people by way of medical freedom and our health. And I have huge respect for her for that reason. And I think people should support her. Okay. To the chat room to close it out here. Oh, and by the way, quick note, yesterday I said on the podcast that we were going to have an announcement today of our big event. Getting some of the details confirmed proved a little bit tougher yesterday than I thought it was going to be. So we didn't make the announcement today. We will make the announcement probably Friday morning about an event that's happening where viewers, followers, subscribers, particularly Unfiltered insiders, we're going to be pushing to have a massive event that has a massive impact on the way people view law enforcement. It's coming up. It's going to be very, very soon. Once we make the announcement, it's only going to be a couple of weeks before we actually go into that event. But that announcement was going to come today. But like I said, we are still working very, very hard. Myself and some of our other insiders are working very hard to get everything nailed down before I make that announcement. So we're probably going to make that announcement not tomorrow, but Friday. All I will tell you is block out March 5th on your calendar, the evening of March 5th on your calendar. That's all I can say right now, or everything else is going to be on the QT. Okay. But it's going to be something you're going to want to be a part of. All right. Some of our chatters already know what I'm talking about, and they are indeed part of the committee. A lot of them are, or some of them are that are. And by the way, the committee was just formed by being a donor. If you are a paid subscriber to our locals community, which click the join button and you can join for free. The join button right beneath me right now. Click that and join the locals community. But if you join as a paid subscriber, you will be one of the Unfiltered insiders, and you will be in our war room, and you'll help us plan all of these things and play an integral role in what we're trying to build. But some of those folks are in the chat right now, and I obviously have been very, very busy, so I haven't read very much of it. Lois Irene asking, is it Ohio Freedom Fighters? I was thinking that might have been about Stephanie's Ohio Advocates for Medical Freedom, but it is not. Let's see. Del Bigtree produced and narrates Inconvenient Study, hosted 2016 documentary Vaxxed. That ties right into what Stephanie was talking about. Established Informed Consent Action Network and 5 years of Rumble Medical Podcast Highwire. Buckeye Tree says Huffman is a snake. Fed Up Granny says lots of info on Highwire. Big Pharma Money Bob says Fed Up Granny. Big Pharma says CMG2, the Bank of America. Let's see. Thank you, Stephanie. We need you for medical freedom. Too many people believe doctors and the government are God. Lois Irene asking, what is the website for Stephanie? We covered that. She's going to have one. It's not built yet, but it's going to be stephaniestockforohio.com. So glad to have that out there. Sign up to be a recurring donor as well, even if it's just not. Yeah, thank you, Charlie, for that suggestion. That is exactly right. That's what has to happen. Again, if we can get critical mass and get a large number of people to do the same thing, we'll be sustained. We'll look at that. Thank you, Charlie, for that. He just dropped $10 in the tip jar. Seriously, if you can do that on a recurring basis, anybody who can do that, we will be able to say this program is here for the long haul. This mission is in it for the fight to the end. But like I said, it's got to be funded. That's what this is all about. Okay, that's going to do it for now. Thank you to Stephanie Stock, my guest. Thank you to my partnership. And I'm talking about my foundational partners at AFP, Americans for Prosperity, Ohio. Don't forget to go to BuckeyeBlueprint.com and Mark King at KeepingMedicareSimple.com. Thanks to my chatters, my regulars, and thanks to everyone else for listening and being a part of it today and every day. Let's get some nice vibe music for the outro as we head out into our Wednesday today. Once again, it's a very, very important holy day in the Catholic calendar. It's Ash Wednesday. So for those of you who are Catholic, hopefully you'll go out there and get those ashes. We'll be doing it after work today. I will be sometime tonight. As we begin the season of Lent, try to find something to sacrifice. I'm trying very hard to stop swearing. It's going to be my Lenten promise. Today's Ash Wednesday. I think I only let one slip in the middle of this show, but it's something I'm going to be working on. It's not the same as giving up food or a vice that you have, but just making yourself a better person is a good thing to do during Lent, and that's going to be what I try to do. Anyway, we can talk more about that another day. But thanks again, everybody. Be well, be safe, stay free. As I always remind you, Unfiltered Insiders, tomorrow night, 9 o'clock, an online meeting in the locals community on the live feed there. We'll do that tomorrow night, 9 o'clock. But to everybody else, like I said, be well, be safe, and stay free. See you. Bye-bye.